on trying to tell people why they shouldn't take a supplement than they have done anything for our industry.
Right.
Nothing, really. 20 years on ginger. Anyway, so that's the kind of stuff that we've been putting up with. And they took, where the public helped us in the 1980s, and we passed what was called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. It's 30 years old now, and that gave our products the legal right to exist. and got the FDA temporarily off our backs for just being able to tell people about a natural product or an herb or a vitamin that might be helpful to you. And we went through all of that, and the public sided with us, and they voted that yes, these products do deserve to be on the available to consumers without costing an arm and a leg, because that's what the drug boys claim why the price of drugs are so high, because of the requirements on them to prove that something is safe and efficacious. And they wanted to set us by the same standard. But you know what? The herbs are not patentable. I mean, you can process how you go about making an herbal product can be patented, but an herb that you dig in your yard is not patentable. And thank the Lord for that. That you can still go dig dandelion if you want to. But the fact that we put dandelion in a capsule or in a tincture did not make it a drug. And that's what we argued about, and we won the public support, and we were able to get the DeShay bill. But the moment we did get that passed, at that time it was Henry Waxman in the House and Ted Kennedy in the Senate. And the moment it looked like our bill was going to pass, then they started meddling with it. And they put in there provisions, and the people who are the leadership of our industry accepted those provisions that ultimately were going to be used against us by the FDA in order to find ways that they could chisel at our freedom and once again put our companies under pressure. And that's what you see when you go into a vitamin store nowadays. You'll see all these wonderful brands that's been around in our industry for maybe some of them nearly 100 years. And yet, all of a sudden, all the vitamins all look alike. Where you used to have a choice and you could get some interesting combinations. But now they all look alike. And it's from your friendly Food and Drug Administration that's putting the pressure on these companies, because they have a lot of money at stake. And if they said, oh, we don't like this, you got to change it. Well, they do, because they don't want to lose their source of income. So they abide by what they're told by the Food and Drug Administration, who has a very stout bias against the natural products industry. They have for years, and they probably always will. I doubt that it ever changes. But at the same time, I remain hopeful, ever hopeful. The latest campaign that we've had, by the way, is where herb companies that were putting homeopathic remedies in with the herbs, they're now being called unapproved new drugs. And they're making the herb companies separate the homeopathic remedies from the herbal products. And I don't know, maybe we'll see this movement to do that to the herb companies that were using both modalities in the same product. We may see that change under the new administration, but I really don't know yet. Because again, I mentioned the power of them making those annual contributions. And like in Waxman's case, for instance, I remember this well because I had to go up against him in our campaign for the DSHEA. But in Waxman's case, it was revealed to me by a staffer, a congressional staffer, that the PMA at that time had funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars to Henry Waxman's PAC, his Political Action Committee, to be given out to congressmen who voted their way. And this method of going on where they give it to leadership and let leadership dole it out, this is how they keep, both parties do it now.
Oh, yeah.
How they keep members in line. Because that chunk of change that was being passed out, they know they ain't gonna get that if they go up and vote maybe the way their constituents are asking them to vote, as opposed to the way the money is telling them to vote. And listen, this is not to be a political advertisement, but the amount of money now that it takes to mount a congressional campaign. Well, you guys heard it. Look at, they're talking about this presidential election, $1 billion, $1 billion for political office. Imagine that it got that carried away. And it's happening, even on the local level. Well, not necessarily in the state, but as far as your local representative, the amount of money that's funneled and what it takes just to run a congressional campaign. Now, hey, I got a lot of respect for Adderholt. He, when he first took over for Tom Bevel, he was open-minded to our industry, and he's been helpful to our industry every time an issue has come up. So I appreciate what he's done, but you know what? He was a retired circuit judge when he got first elected as a congressman. And what his net worth is now is incredible. It's not on retired judges' pay, I can assure you that, And so it just shows you that game that's going on with big business that goes on. Now, listen, I know you ladies, I appreciate you giving me time to talk, but I definitely want to mention this little newsletter before I leave. This is a monthly item that we publish, and it's what it is. Jay Jacobowitz is the science writer that writes it, and he takes these science articles and he condenses them down to just a few paragraphs so that they're really quick to read, and there's a variety of topics every month, and we're just real proud of it, and they're free for coming in an apple a day. So you don't need to buy anything from us, it's fine, but if you like this little newsletter, it's prepared where I can mail them out, but I'm just too cheap. But you guys are welcome to a copy of it. And I know we're running, I've probably used up all my time, but I want to mention, I mentioned this on my radio program, which is on Friday mornings on WMGJ. I'm on there from 9:30 to 9:45 every Friday. But I talk about my customers or my listeners of this program are probably the most knowledgeable people about vitamin D in the country, because I have something about vitamin D almost every week. I can mention something about vitamin D. But do you know how remarkable about vitamin D, how much it means to you guys? Y'all have all heard about it for preventing osteoporosis, very important, health issue for women. But did you know that vitamin D plays a role in 3,000 different functions of the body? And this thing about it being fat soluble and that you could get too much, there's a very good chance you would never be at risk of getting too much. The reason I say this is because if you're trying to heal up from something, your body will try to use your vitamin D in one day. You will go through half of your available stores of vitamin D if you're trying to get well. Half. So if you were at 100 on their test, which you won't be, you'll be more likely being female, you'll be between 25 and 30. But even if you were 100, if you're fighting arthritis, if you're trying to heal up from something, you're going to be half of that in one day. In one day. And yet the medical boys, Big Pharma, FDA, they've all tried to make you think you could get too much vitamin D. That ain't going to happen. But my sweet mother-in-law, she's now deceased, but vitamin D didn't kill her. I can assure you that when she went to her doctor, it was Webb Sledge. A lot of y'all know Webb Sledge, who he was before he retired. But he, he'd given her that vitamin D lecture. Oh, you're going to have to take vitamin D. Get your levels up. Well, I went a step further, and I modified his recommendations to her. And she got on her last test a couple of years ago. She was at 96 on that 0 to 100 test, and Webb just, how did you do that? And she told him that she started taking 5,000 units of vitamin D, and she was taking it sublingually. She was letting the little tablet dissolve in her mouth. So therefore, she bypassed all that digestive tract where things can go wrong. Because if you're 90 years old, you don't have the same digestive abilities that you once did. And she got her levels up to 96 even under those circumstances. And after that, old Webb started sending people down to Apple a day to get the sublingual vitamin D. But it was, there's news on this kind of topics on every issue. So I encourage you. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that Tommy Bass was a mentor of mine. I was Tommy's youngest student. Okay, this is back in the 1980s. And this book came out. This is Herbal Medicine Past and Present, Volume 2. I finally found a copy of Volume 1. But John Creelan and Jane Philpott was the head of Duke University's med school at the time, or the pharmacy school, excuse me. And then John Creelan is now at the University of Newfoundland, but he was teaching at Duke at the time when they wrote this book. And this whole book, when you go through it, it talks about the different herbs, and there will be a drawing, and it talks about the monograph and all that they officially knew about it. But over here, there's a thing called the herbalist account. And I thought, well, that was great that they got these southern herbalists to write about these southern herbs, And then I found out that was all Tommy Bass. The herbalist account in here is just all Brother Bass. And he was an amazing fella. He really was. And I think Daryl Patton was one of his students. Y'all might know Daryl. He still does a program. He does a herb class every month. He also speaks whenever the Methodist Church, has their thing. He's a member, and he does an herb talk for them. Well, anyway, Daryl, I've got some incredible number of herbs that Tommy supposedly knew something about. I don't know the facts about that, but he definitely, John Creelan credits him to have known something about 3,000 different plants. Wow. So he was an amazing man to know. I know a lot of the guys that would call themselves students of his. They're no longer among us anymore. You still, as long as Daryl keeps doing his thing and I keep available and accessible, I guess Tommy's impact will continue to be here with us. But hey, listen, guys, I enjoyed talking with you, and if I can ever help you, by all means, I'll be more than happy to do the research. You can find me. Now, the staff keeps me hidden in the back at my desk, but if I can ever answer a question for you or look something up for you or give an opinion, because I know I've seen stuff published on the internet, which a lot of people depend on now, and I look at it and I'm thinking, I don't know if that's true. I mean, there's a lot of fear out there, and they put the fear. But I got to just remind you, I mean, I know we're a whole new cocktail when we start mixing the herbs with our drugs. In fact, the doctors try to talk you out of taking any more herbs once they put you on drugs because they don't want to learn about them. That's fine. But the herbs have been part of our medicine for thousands of years. I mean, Ayurveda is 4,000 years old. Chinese traditional medicines, 5,000, at least 5,000 years old. And so Big Pharma, 120 years old. Yeah. So it's something really to think about, and I appreciate this opportunity to talk about my industry to you guys. Well,